Nobody in that cafeteria expected the little girl with the crutch to stop at the table, full of empty chairs, and nobody expected the tired-looking man sitting there alone to change her life with 3 simple words. Her name was Sable Monroe, and she was 10 years old. 18 months earlier, a rare bone infection had forced doctors to amputate her right leg above the knee, and in the time since, the hallways and lunchroom of Brookfield Elementary had become a battlefield she faced alone every single day. Children have a way of sensing difference the way animals sense fear. And instead of curiosity, most of Sable's classmates responded with distance. Not cruelty exactly, just a quiet, persistent absence, as though sitting near her might somehow be contagious. Every day around noon, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the cafeteria, Sable would balance her tray on one arm, brace her crutch under the other, and search the sea of tables for a single open seat that wouldn't come with a look of pity or a whispered joke behind cupped hands. On a bright Wednesday in October, with sunlight slanting through the high windows and dust motes drifting lazily above the noise, Sable's search ended at a table near the back where a man sat by himself, jacket still on, a school visitor badge clipped crookedly to his chest. His name was Theo Ashford, 36 years old, a widowed father who had come in for a scheduled meeting with his son's teacher, a meeting that had been abruptly rescheduled, leaving him stranded in a cafeteria full of 10-year-olds with nothing but a lukewarm cup of vending, machine coffee, and 45 minutes to kill. Sable stood at the edge of his table for a long moment, gripping her crutch tighter than necessary, gathering whatever courage a 10-year-old can gather in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Finally, she asked in a voice barely above a whisper, "Can I sit here?" If a story about kindness and second chances is something you believe in, this is the moment to hit like, drop a comment, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Whispering Tales Stories so you never miss what happens next. Theo looked up, and what he saw in that small face was something he recognized instantly, because he had seen it in the mirror every single day for the past year. His son, Rowan, had stopped speaking almost entirely after the car accident that took Theo's wife, and Theo had spent countless nights wondering if the world had simply become too heavy for a child's shoulders to carry. He saw that same heaviness in Sable's eyes now, that same practiced bracing for rejection, and something in his chest tightened before he even opened his mouth. "Please," Theo said, sliding his tray over to make room. "I was starting to think I'd have to eat this entire lunch by myself, and honestly, that tray of mystery meat deserves better company than just me." Sable lowered herself carefully into the seat across from him, propping her crutch against the table's edge, waiting for the question everyone always asked. The one about what happened to her leg, the one that made her feel like a curiosity instead of a person. But Theo didn't ask that. Instead, he asked if she'd ever tried putting ranch dressing on pizza, because his son insisted it was genius and Theo remained deeply unconvinced. Sable blinked, caught off guard, and then, for the first time in longer than she could remember, she laughed, a small surprise sound that seemed to startle even her. Over the weeks that followed, Theo found reasons to return to Brookfield, more often than any single parent-teacher meeting required. He signed up to chaperone the fall science fair, then volunteered for the library's after-school reading hour, and somehow Wednesday lunch quietly became something he looked forward to more than he admitted even to himself. He learned that Sable dreamed of becoming a marine biologist, that she could name every species of shark found in the Atlantic Ocean, and that since her surgery she had not been invited to a single birthday party, though she never once said this with self-pity, only with the flat, resigned honesty of a child who had simply stopped expecting otherwise. He learned that her father had left when she was 3 and that her mother worked double shifts at the hospital, which meant Sable often sat alone on the front steps of their apartment building after school, waiting for headlights that wouldn't arrive for hours. Theo began picking her up too, folding her into the same after-school routine as his son Rowan without ceremony, just another car seat, another backpack tossed into the truck bed. At first, Rowan watched the new arrangement with the guarded silence that had become his only language since his mother's death. But that silence cracked one afternoon when Sable, unprompted, described in vivid detail how a hammerhead shark's eyes work, and Rowan, despite himself, laughed out loud for the first time in nearly a year. Theo nearly drove off the road when he heard it. But the road to healing is rarely a straight one. And on a cold afternoon in late November, Sable arrived at lunch with her face blotchy and her eyes swollen from crying. She had clearly tried to hide. She wouldn't look at anyone. Theo didn't press her. He simply sat beside her in the silence he had learned to sit inside during Rowan's darkest months, until finally she confessed in a broken whisper that a group of boys had followed her out to the pickup line that morning, mimicking her walk and calling her peg leg, loudly enough for half the school to hear and laugh along. She told him she had thought just for a moment about not coming back to that cafeteria ever again, about disappearing into somewhere no one could see her. Something in Theo went very still and very quiet, the way it had the night the police called about his wife. But when he spoke, his voice held none of that old fury, only steadiness. He knelt down in front of her chair, right there in the middle of that loud, ordinary cafeteria, and told her something he had never said aloud to another living soul, not even to his own son. He told her that after his wife died, he used to stand in front of the bathroom mirror and feel like half a man, like something vital had been scooped out of him, leaving a hollow he was certain everyone could see. And then one night Rowan had climbed silently into his lap, and though he still hadn't spoken a word since the accident, he had wrapped his small arms around Theo's neck and held on so tightly that Theo finally understood. The pieces we lose are never the pieces that define us. What defines us is what we build with everything that remains. And what Sable had built, he told her, every single day she walked into that cafeteria, on one leg and searched for somewhere to belong, was courage sturdier than anything most adults would ever be asked to summon in their entire lives, Sable cried then right there at the table. But these tears felt different from the ones she'd carried in with her that morning. Theo reached across and held her hand until the shaking stopped, and around them, the cafeteria had gone unusually quiet. Dozens of 10-year-olds, watching a grown man tell a little girl that she was already whole. The story of what happened that afternoon moved through Brookfield Elementary the way stories move through children, slowly at first and then everywhere at once. Within a week, 2 more kids had asked to sit at Sable's table. By spring, she had organized the class's first ocean conservation bake sale, raising more money than any project the school had seen in years, and standing in front of the entire assembly to explain why sharks mattered, without a single tremor in her voice. When summer arrived, Sable's mother, worn thin from years of carrying everything alone, asked Theo if he would consider becoming a consistent, official presence in her daughter's life, a request that eventually deepened into something neither of them had planned for, built first on their children's friendship and slowly, carefully, into something more. If this story touched even a small part of your heart, if it reminded you that one open seat can rewrite the course of someone's entire life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who still needs to believe in second chances. It means more to this channel than you know. Before this story closes, if you made it all the way here, type the word brave in the comments below, because that is exactly what Sable was, long before the world around her finally noticed. Theo Ashford never meant to change anyone's life that Wednesday afternoon. He simply moved his tray aside and made room for a child the world had overlooked. But in doing that one small, ordinary thing, he gave a little girl something far greater than a place to sit. He gave her proof that she was worth choosing, worth knowing, worth loving exactly as she was. And sometimes that is all it takes, one open seat, one honest answer, and a heart willing enough to say yes.